They're back.
What up, though? 7 days, we back again for another episode of Domino Effect. I'm Archbishop. We got Mike Ball, Aaron Olinger. What's up, everybody? Glad you were able to, we had Aaron Olinger. He's going to pop back in a minute. What's up, everybody? Glad you're able to tune in. We got another good story for you today. We're gonna slide off Iran for this week, even though it's a lot of stuff going on with that. But we're gonna jump into something else here that's gonna be equally interesting. I know just through having these conversations with this gentleman that is really gonna make you think a lot about how this judicial system is actually put together, what works, and how you can actually basically get away with whatever you want to. But we're gonna jump into that. So for the ones who has never before, welcome to the Domino Effect Podcast, where we don't simply follow the narratives, we follow the evidence and point out what needs to be given, because a lot of stuff has been hidden. It's always been hidden, and our goal is not to tell you what to think. Our goal is to give you the information, ask the difficult questions, and allow you to reach your own conclusion based on the stories that we bring up. Before we get started, hit that like button. That's what's going to get this show on a proper algorithm and be able to spread this story out as much as possible. So today's guest is Walter Bernard. A lot of you may know that name because he used to be a former NFL player who later became an attorney, and his journey took him from the football field to a courtroom, but he is now involved in one of the most consequential legal battles of his life, a civil business dispute eventually led to contempt proceedings, 2 arrests, jail time, a federal civil rights lawsuit, and a petition to the Supreme Court of the United States. This episode is not a verdict against Walter Bernard or the other people involved. Walter will explain the allegations, but we will also address everything that went on, the rulings, what went against him, what happened, and see if we can get a lot of these questions answered. So tonight it's my pleasure to welcome Walter Bernard to the Domino Effect Podcast. So what's up, Walter? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Bishop?
Oh man, doing great. So before we start going into the court proceedings and the arrests and all that stuff, I want the people to understand who you are and who you were before all this even took place. Now, you played defensive back in the NFL, went to the University of New Mexico. You played for the San Diego Chargers, Indianapolis Colts, the Frankfurt Galaxy, and the Seattle Seahawks. So if you would, kind of take us back to the beginning, how your football career started, and what did it mean for you to reach that professional level?
Yeah, thank you. So I come from San Diego. I was born and raised in San Diego, California, and it wasn't until my senior year of high school where I first started playing high school football. Prior to that, my sophomore and junior year, I had a coach at a different high school who essentially told me that I wasn't good enough to play football. And then I ended up transferring my senior year. I started off as fourth string and made my way up as a cornerback. By the start of the season, I started my first game, and it was my first time really playing football. And so from that season, for just a couple games on my high school career, started getting phone calls from various schools throughout the nation who developed an interest in me. A couple schools fell through. They wanted me to go to JC because they complained. They were saying that there wasn't a ton of film on me, but I still was able to make all county in San Diego. And people don't realize San Diego it's a football factory. I mean, we have four Heisman Trophy winners that are originally from San Diego, like Marcus Allen, Reggie Bush, Rashawn Salam, Ricky Williams. And so people don't realize those guys are all in the San Diego area. After that, I ended up getting scholarships. So I went out to the University of New Mexico, where I was the 3-year starter out there. And then people know the name like Brian Urlacher when I bring it up. He was my I shouldn't say but he was our safety. I was a corner. We had one of the biggest secondaries in college football at the time. And then when I came out as an undrafted free agent, but I did sign with the Chargers in minicamp. And so I came in with Drew Brees and LaDainian. I came in with that rookie class. And so it was interesting, and just to see like that hey, when I was in minicamp, I was like, okay, I made it. And so I as you stated earlier, I bounced around the league for a little bit, finally pretty much selling in Seattle. And my career was cut short just due to injury. But coming from like San Diego, where football was known, and then all the way to the pros, it was definitely a dream come true when so many of my colleagues back in high school, and coaches had doubted me, said that I couldn't do it. And so I was resilient, kept having the mindset that, hey, everything is gonna work out. And so eventually made it. And then I said, once I was injured and going through rehab through my injury, I made the difficult decision to go ahead and retire. And then as I was doing rehab, I started studying for the LSAT to get into to law school. And so eventually went to law school at Howard University. And after my first year, made the decision to also go to business school. And so when it came down to it, I got my JD and my MBA from Howard University Law School and then Howard University Business School. So that's essentially how I became an attorney.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, especially being able to go from the NFL and then just do a complete 360 and do something totally different. You know what I mean? That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, so I think it's funny is some of the things that I learned within football and training, such as learning how to take coaching well, learning how to work with other people from different backgrounds and work together as a common goal. Also, you take losses on the chin. You don't celebrate your wins too high. And so you just continue to press forward. That taught me a lot about just life in general. And I think that when it comes to athletes, if you have an athletic background, I just think it just prepares you for the real world, because that it's not always going to work out, but at the same time, as long as there's time on the clock, you always have a chance to win. And so that's my whole I guess my motto in life is, man, if I have time on the clock, I have a chance to win. And so it's only when the clock has reached 0 minutes and the game's over or the season's over, then you don't have the chance, but there's always next year. And so I try to use that motto with everything, but I think a lot of it, football had taught me that. So very blessed to have been able to make it to that level.
That's a great philosophy and a great way to think. I think that sets you up for success. If you truly objectively look at life that way, I think that's a huge bonus.
Yes. And then my other thing is one thing I glossed over is at the University of New Mexico, I was actually a filmmaker. I studied film, and one of the things I loved about film, about screenwriting, I was a screenwriter, was that sometimes the best movies have the biggest turmoil, in the midst of the movie. If a guy just accomplishes everything in life, it's not going to make for a good story. But some of the best stories, you see the protagonist or the main character, you see them go through things, and it looks like there's like all hope is lost, and then there's a struggle, and the greater the struggle, a lot of times that you can start off and the movie's boring and you're like, man, this movie is terrible, but as long as that ending is good, people will be like, man, it was slow in the beginning, but it was such a good movie because look at the end. We didn't see these turns happen. We didn't see this coming. And so I'm going to recommend this movie to other people. And so I also see that as life as well. Is I know we talk about like a lot about mental health and everything. And I've lost friends, I've lost mentors to suicide. But one of the things that I like to take is like, okay, if my life is this movie, even though it looks bad now, like how's it eventually going to end? Because that's going to make for just a better story. So
absolutely.
That's right.
See, now you told me something new that I didn't know. See, I didn't know that you did film. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really, really cool.
Right. See, because I do film myself. So I had no idea that that's what you did. So we're going to definitely have to talk about that.
Yeah, this is the main man for that stuff now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We're going to have to get on that later on. But
yeah, for sure.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
So you came over from filmmaking to becoming an attorney. So at that point, you actually believed in the justice system and what it stood for. Did that change after this case? Did it make you feel
Yes, I think with all things, you have certain beliefs, you have certain perceptives, and then once you get into the nuts and bolts and understand whether they're good or bad, once you start to understand what lies beneath, so to speak, it changes your perspective, and I think that's where you start to gain understanding. That's where you gain wisdom, because people say, this person is ignorant, this person is, or that person is ignorant, but ignorant just means you just don't know. And so as far as the judicial system, I don't see how it could not change anyone's outlook of some of the things that I've seen, that I've been through. I would just to give you a quick story. Some of the things that changed my perspective is I worked as a defensive attorney, and I remember checking in at court one time, and I had my files in one hand and my suit and everything, and I was ready to defend my client as best I could. So I go to check in with the clerk at the judge's clerk, and I say, "Hey, I'm Walter Bernard. I'm here to check in for my client." Sorry, I just said, "Yeah, I'm Walter Bernard. I'm here to check in." And the response I got was, okay, have a seat over there. Is your attorney here yet? And I would get that. I would get that a lot throughout my career. There was another time where I was at I was representing a client who was incapacitated at a hospital, and he was. I went to go visit him, and I had the police called on me because at the time he was in sheriff's custody, but it was his location was confidential. So I came in. I'm talking to my client. One of the head nurses called the police on me, and I had 9 officers show up to the hospital trying to arrest me, and they had said that I was my client's friend because I looked like him. They said I was his friend, but impersonating an attorney. And so that definitely caused some of those stories and those incidents changed my perspective of the judicial system and how people perceive me and how I perceive them. So it's definitely had an impact on me.
So we're going to jump into what's going on now and what brought you before Judge Ignelzi. Did I say that right?
Yes, that's right.
So kind of give us a rundown as to what this case was actually about and go through as to what happened. Because like I said, we've talked about this before, as you start going through this, you begin to question, like, a lot of this just don't make sense. You know what I mean? That you've never heard certain things happen the way you're going to put it out there. So go ahead and start from the beginning as to how you even got before this judge and take us through that. Yes.
So how it started was my brother, his name's Wynton Bernard. He's a professional baseball player. We owned a family-owned business, in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, and the whole business was like a family friendly atmosphere. We would do corporate events. We would have birthday parties, and so there was a clause in our lease agreement with the landlord. And again, this business, it was an entity of itself. Although we owned the business, we were not the tenants, but we were guarantors of the lease. So there was a clause in our lease agreement that said that should the business be shut down and our business cannot operate, that we could abate the rent. What that means is abate just means like you don't have to pay as long as you're shut down due to like no negligence on your part. So there was a mandate in the county, basically said no businesses could operate. That wasn't our fault, and so we brought that to the landlord that the business cannot operate. We're shut down. He bypassed the agreement, said, no, I don't care. You still have to pay the rent. I'm saying, like, as an attorney, you look at the plain meaning of the contract. Well, here's what the contract says. So we ended up getting a commercial attorney. He goes to argue, and the judge rules against us it basically says, no, like, you still have a duty to pay rent. We thought that was wrong, but we were willing to move on, take that on the chin. Okay. So then if we're losing that and we have to pay back rent, the next question is, how much do we owe? Because at that point, the landlord had came in when this was all going on. He had his agents come in, steal our stuff that like many of our items that were in the business. The business wasn't operating, but still one of his agents came in and they stole thousands of dollars worth of our items that were unique to the business. Some were like sports memorabilia, like we had signed cleats by different athletes. They came in, they stole all this stuff. So when this happened, we got the stuff, we moved out of the building and said, we'll just have to take this up in court. So as this was pending, the landlord had another tenant come in. We knew that the new tenant was paying a lot more money during the term of our lease, was paying a lot more money than we had to. So when we ended up losing the judgment about they said that we had to pay like 3 months back rent, but then also a full year of rent for breaking the lease because we moved out. So the judge also said, and this isn't Judge Ignelzi, this is a completely different judge. The judge said, what's going to happen is we're going to offset how much the new tenants are paying from what you owe. The problem was nobody knew what this offset was. So the judge said, we need to have a hearing. He said when the at the time of execution of this judgment, that the defendants, who were my brother and I, that we would be entitled to an offset of the rent. So that skipping a little bit over the source, or fast forward through the story. So what ended up happening is almost a year or two later, the opposing counsel comes in and says, well, we need to have all of your personal financial information, bank account information. We want all your tax returns. And we're going, whoa, we're willing to accept the defeat on the rent, but you don't get until we can get a number up to how much we owe, if at all, because in theory, if the offset is well over what we owe, then technically you would owe us. So let's figure out what this offset is and how much is determined, and whether we can pay until you come in and doing a fishing expedition over all of our personal items. Because at this point, between the stealing from us and coming in, we thought that that the landlord was trying to do a lot of intimidation tactics against us. So we fought back and we said, let's figure out how much, what the other judge said, how much is owed. So the way it works in this particular county is Judge Ignelzi was the one to see over any issues dealing with discovery. So if there's a discovery issue, then a lot of times it's brought before him. So he jumps in the case, and like both sides were arguing back and forth about how much was owed. He jumps in the case and he writes orders to say, all right, well, the plaintiffs have to turn over the information. Remember, we're defendants. So this goes on, and this goes back and forth for months. We get another judge to come in and stay the back and forth, to say, like, until we get a number, then the ability for them to discover on our personal assets is frozen. Like, it can't go on. So the landlord kept going through his counsel, kept going to Judge Ignelzi to try to get us to turn over, ignoring the stay of the other judge. Now, what ended up happening is I filed a petition to this third judge, asking this judge to telling the judge, like, hey, all the stuff is stayed, and they can't execute on any judgment because we don't have a number. Let's have a hearing so we can determine the number. And then once we have this hearing, then allow us the ability to pay. So this particular judge rules that, yeah, they can't collect on any judgment, but you have to turn over all of your financial documents. So when we got that order, we knew that the law was wrong, because the law says you can't, if there's no ability to execute on any judgment, then then you can't do any type of discovery on it until we have the judgment. So we were trying to understand how much do we owe? So we appealed that judge's order. When the order is on appeal, that means that the lower state court is divested. They lose all jurisdiction over the case. It goes to the appellate court, and then once the appellate court, what we call, gives back or remands their jurisdiction, they relinquish their jurisdiction, and then it goes back to the trial court. So while this discovery issue was on appeal, Judge Ignelzi comes in, and he has this like last minute hearing over the phone. We weren't even prepared for it, and he says, "Yeah, you have to turn over all the stuff." And I said, "Your Honor, it's on appeal." And he goes, "Why did you appeal the other judge's order?" And I said, because and I was citing the cases as to why it justified an appeal. So what ended up happening is he said, "I don't care. You have in 3 days, you turn over all of the information. Otherwise," he said, "I'm gonna have the sheriffs take care of this." So after that hearing, I'm scratching my head like, that doesn't seem right. So I go back to the law, look at the law, like, this is all types of wrong. So I was getting ready to try to appeal Judge Ignelzi's order. And I'm like, how do you appeal something that's already like on appeal? It was very confusing. So what ended up happening is a couple of days later, I had 9 sheriff officers come to our residence. It's because I have offices other places. My brother Wynn has offices other places, but our business was one of our businesses was in Pittsburgh. We traveled out, so we shared a common residence because we were always in and out. So the sheriffs come, maybe about 9 sheriff officers come first thing in the morning, knocking at my door, and they kept knocking, and I'm like, I don't know why they're knocking. They don't have any warrant. There's, I don't have to really come to the door. I've been a defense attorney. I know the Fourth Amendment inside and out. So they, after banging on the door, making a scene outside, they brought out a canine unit. They finally called me after banging outside of my door for an hour. They finally called me on my cell phone to have a conversation. And the detective said, he introduces himself and he says, "Hey, you're not in trouble. This isn't criminal." And I was like, well, you're acting like it's criminal. You have 9 officers surrounding our house. And he says, "Yes, but I've dealt with this stuff before." He just said, "The judge just wants to see you." I said, "But the judge never called any hearing, no nothing." And he said, "The judge right now is on the phone with us trying to convince us to break in to your residence." And he said, "If you don't come to the door, it's going to get much worse." And so I asked him to, like, I don't want you coming in here shooting people, because like there's no coming back from that. So I stayed on the phone with him, And then I said, I'm trying to comply. I ended up asking if there was a warrant. There was no warrant. And under threat of harm, I basically walked outside. I asked them if they would not put me in handcuffs because, they were already making a scene. All the neighbors at this time were videotaping, looking like, what's going on? Is he, thinking that I'm running like this big drug operation? So they escort me to the back of the police car. They then drive me maybe about 20, 30 minutes down to the courthouse. At the courthouse, they then shackle me, put me in, the wrist restraints and leg restraints, and then I'm escorted into a holding cell.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1
yes.
second, Walter. 1 second. Before you go any further, I just want to say something right quick. So you were arrested, shackled, right?
Yes.
Handcuffed, shackled, with no warrant and no charges.
Right.
Correct?
And no court order.
Okay. I just wanted to put that out there to everybody, like that. I mean, to listen to what it is. No warrant, no charges, no court document saying to arrest. I mean, like, what are you being arrested for? You know what I mean? To the point that you are in handcuffs and shackles. Aaron, go ahead.
Aaron was getting ready for something. I want to hear it real quick.
Yeah. I want to mention this, just a little background, because he had made a statement of possibly being shut down due to no fact of his own. This happened during COVID. There is massive shutdowns of businesses throughout the nation. Even my business with the gun shows was shut down for a period of 6 months. So that was far beyond his ability to be able to control that situation. So I just want people to understand that this happened during COVID.
Yes, absolutely. So we even going off pivoting off that point. So there was no way for us to operate because they were actually handing out fines to other businesses if they caught you operating. Our lease agreement says that it has to be a lawful business. You can't be unlawful. So we knew we couldn't operate that way. The other clause, like I said, it allowed us to abate the rent. Thirdly, we contacted our insurance company at the time because we had business interruption insurance. Business interruption insurance, they weren't helping us with the claim. They ended up denying the claim, and the state later reached a decision that said COVID shutdowns, that insurance companies did not have to pay for business interruption for COVID. So we were essentially stuck, and we had no ability to pay. We had no insurance coverage, and we were abiding by the law and the lease agreement at that time. And so fast forward to when I'm arrested, when I'm questioning the officers, they just said, the judge wants to see you. That's it. So I'm brought down, no warrant, removed from my home. And again, the court order, it said that the plaintiffs, not the defendant, it said the plaintiffs had to turn over information. I don't want to speculate as far as the judge's intentions, but it was directing action to the plaintiff. So there was no action directed to us. We knew a couple things, that there was no warrant, that the issue of discovery was in the exclusive control of the appellate courts, which the lower court had no jurisdiction over, and there was no action directed towards us. So I'm brought before the court, Judge Ignelzi, and then I was detained for a couple hours. Finally brought in shackles to the courtroom, and that is where I enter the courtroom. Judge Ignelzi says, "Why did you disobey my order?" I said, I didn't disobey your order. Essentially, like, look at your order. There's no disobey. There's no form of disobedience to any order. And he said, yeah, somebody could have got hurt. I think they were frustrated because I didn't come to the door. I showed some resistance in the beginning, but he was like, somebody, the officers, somebody could have gotten hurt. So he reprimanded me because they took me out of the house with no warrant. And he even admitted that they were collectively trying to, they were going to break into the house. So he said, it's a good thing that you complied. So he said, here's what we're going to do. He said, I'm going to go back in my chambers and you're going to have 15 minutes. And what you're going to do is you're going to decide whether you have two options. One, you're going to settle the case right here, right now, because remember, this is a civil case. This is not a criminal case. He said, you're going to settle the case. Or two, you're going to turn over all the discovery that the opposing counsel wants. And by the way, opposing counsel was there, so they got the memo that there was supposed to be this quote unquote off-put hearing that wasn't on the record. They got the memo. I never got any memo. If I was told to be at court, I would have went willingly to the courthouse. So that showed me that there was something going on. When he goes back to his chambers, and I'm thinking, and he said, let the sheriff officer know when you're ready. If you don't choose one of those options, we're going to finish fingerprinting you and processing you into the jail. And so I'm trying to think on my toes when the judge is going back. But again, I had never been arrested, never been in trouble with the law. So this was all new. And then I pulled from my house. So I'm trying to process all of this, and I don't have any type of representation, nothing. It's just me. And so my first thought is, okay, he's going to try to take away my license. So I know through the ethic rules, I can't make a settlement agreement of a case without my client being there. At the time, I believe my brother Winton was out in New York somewhere. So I knew that if I were to make or agree to the settlement that he's saying I had the option to, then that creates a whole nother issue. So I said I have to go with option two, but I don't have access to this information, and it's on appeal. So I tell the sheriff, all right, I'm ready to make the decision. The judge comes back and he says, what's your decision? And I tell him, well, my client doesn't know about this hearing because I was both defendant, lawyer, and then I was representing my brother Winton. So I said, I can't make that decision without him. He has no idea, and I'm over here in shackles. So I can't go with option number one. I said, as far as option number two, I guess I'm gonna have to go with that because you're forcing me to. And so he then says, okay, so the opposing counsel breaks out a whole sheet of questions to ask on the record. And he starts asking me questions on the record. How much did you make in, this year? And I didn't know. And so I said, if I were to speculate, I would say, and he cuts me off, Mr. Bernard, you should know better than that. Like, you're not speculating anything. If you continue to speculate, I'm going to finish prosecuting you in jail. Then he says, there was another question I tried to object to. He said, no, we're past all that. If you object, we'll finish fingerprinting you and you'll be over in jail. So I had to answer questions against my will at the threat of my freedom by opposing counsel. And as each question was being asked to me, the judge would turn over to opposing counsel and say, okay, is that good enough for you? Did he answer it? Did he answer it well enough? And the opposing counsel was over there like, yeah, I think that's good enough. Then they would go, okay, let's go to the next question. And again, all this while I'm in handcuffs in sheriff custody, I can't go nowhere and had no idea about the hearing. So it finally came down to they were asking for information. I had no idea. I had to talk to, or our financial advisor had. And so I said, I don't have this information. So he threatened, since I didn't have it, he said, okay, we're going to finish process you in jail. Opposing counsel jumped in and said, well, if he's in jail, it's going to be tough for him to get this information. So the judge then says, well, how long is it going to take to get this information? On the record, he said, do you think you could get it within, I think it was like 10 days or something, or maybe it was like 15 days. I said, I think I could get the information. So based on that pretense, he then said, okay, we'll let you go. And he said, but if you don't turn that over within 15 days, he said, guess what's going to happen? I said, you'll probably send sheriff officers back to arrest me. And he said, exactly. So I was let go. Again, I had to find my own ride home. They did the, I didn't have any type of courtesy to bring me back home. And so that was just the first arrest.
Okay. Now, before you go to this second one, because I'm listening and I'm jotting down a couple of things as you was going.
I've been watching you, writing down over there. Yep. Yeah.
So first came to your home, they said that the judge wanted to talk to you, correct?
They said the judge wanted to see me.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Like a welfare check almost.
Okay. So the judge wanted to see you. There was no charges. Like you said, there was no warrant. So technically, why would they shouldn't even been arresting you at that point. So if the judge wanted to see you, why didn't he just say, well, we're going to escort you to the courthouse to talk to the judge, or we're going to take you there for you to talk to the judge? Like, I think the whole processing, shackles, all of that's like way extra. You know what I mean? And especially if you're not charged with anything.
Right.
So how long were you actually there at this point? Was it just that one day?
Yeah. So once I was released, it was just for the day. Yes.
Okay. So basically, a lot of this was basically a lot of threats. You know what I mean? Basically, okay, if you don't agree to do this, we're gonna take you back over here. We're gonna process you. We're gonna lock you up. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm still thinking to myself here, okay, you're talking about processing me. You got me in handcuffs. You got me in shackles, but you're not charged with anything. You know what I mean? So that still that red flag there keeps popping up in my head that they're doing, police, actions. Okay, we're going to handcuff you. We're going to shock you. We're basically treating you like we do any other prisoner that we're escorting to the club, to the courthouse or whatever, but you're not charged with anything. So
that's right.
Why go to that depth with it if they know that you're not charged with something? I mean, like,
denied.
Saying whatever, the sheriff should have a little bit of common sense. Like, hold up, we don't have anything to really hold this man. We don't have any charges. He doesn't give, you know what I mean? So why are we handcuffing him and shackling him? The judge just want to talk to him. Let's just get him over there. Let the judge talk to him. You know what I mean? And leave it at that. So go ahead with your second part of it.
Yeah, no. It took, like I said, it took 9 officers, and as a sheriff office, they under their policy themselves that it says, no arrest should be made without a copy of the warrant. They had no copy of any type of warrant to come to justify the threats. And there's a famous U.S. case, U.S. Supreme Court case called U.S. v. Payton, and it talks about that you can't You can't come in and remove a person from their residence without a proper warrant. And so there was not even a warrant or a defect. There wasn't even a defective warrant that they could execute on. If the judge wanted to see me, they could have called a hearing, and that never happened.
Of course not. They want you to go through the proper protocol of everything, but as soon as it's on their side, it's like, well, they get to make it up as they go.
Yes.
Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. So these 10, 15 days go by. Do you turn in the paperwork?
I did not. The reason being is because I went back, I looked at the law, I talked to various civil rights attorneys. They all agreed that that was a violation of my civil rights, and it also was impacting the jurisdiction of the state court. So now I'm caught in a pickle, because as attorneys we have to zealously advocate for our clients. If my if Winton didn't agree to turn it over, I can't just I can't go ahead and against client wishes and turn it over. And if the judge issues an order where he has no jurisdiction, because the law, the statute of the law says that he's divested of any jurisdiction, then that's the question: is his order valid? If, for example, if a Brazilian judge issues an order for you today, knowing that he has no jurisdiction,
sure,
like, are you gonna abide by it? And it's against your current laws. As an attorney, we made an oath to abide by the law as well. So I know this order is done when he's been divested of jurisdiction under the law. So, what do you do in that situation? I knew that it was, yes, go ahead.
I just got a quick question on that. So I've never been in that position, so I don't know.
Right.
But the question I would bear is, as soon as you decided, okay, this 15-day limit that they gave me is unconstitutional it's breaking your civil rights. Do you communicate that with them, or do you not communicate and just blindside and just don't show up or give them the paperwork or whatever? Do you communicate ahead of time, like, hey, listen, I'm going to let you guys know, after further research of this, I found out that you guys are breaking my civil rights with this, and if you want to see me in court, we're willing to do that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. There was something prior to this that I did turn over, showing the law. I basically wrote a brief to ask them, just because the law was going on at this time. So I sent an emergency petition over to the judge's chambers, and I spelled out the law, like how this was not, or how it was not constitutional to require me to turn over the documents, and I laid all the arguments out. They did not, and I filed it as an emergency petition, and they refused to. At the time, they didn't rule on it as an emergency. Usually, emergency petitions, you hear something within 48 hours, and so they knew where my position was. And when I was shackled, one of the things I mentioned is that it was on appeal. I said, this is very unjust. And that's when he responded to me, no, you may not like it, but it's very just. So I didn't know at that point, like, what to do. So I contacted, there's a lot of resources for attorneys. I was contacting, there's different hotlines that you could call, that are confidential hotlines to the attorney. But if you think that you may have violated law, or you think that you have done something to a client, like, they have hotlines to help you. So all the hotlines I called, I was telling them the situation, and they basically were confirming that I was basically following the right protocol at that time. So I was double checking, and then I was contacting like other organizations that work on unlawful detainment, and I had talked to them and other attorneys in the field during that window, and I couldn't find one attorney to go basically on their side. Not to say that, you know, the 20, 30 attorneys I talked to were right or wrong. I'm just saying that the advice of my colleagues was that what he was doing was wrong because they felt that the law was clear. And so so then once I didn't turn over the information, and I'm trying to find attorneys to represent me for the civil rights violation, then the judge sent officers again to my office. They were coming by the office. They were coming by my house, and at that time they had I had, you know, even one of the officers flipping me off on camera, and I'm just like, this is uncalled for. This is beyond. Now it seems like it's just more than just the civil dispute. Now it seems like for some reason, this judge, it seems like is out for blood against me. And so I have another office on the other side of the state. And so I was working out of different offices, and there were days where I still would have to go to court in the county. I would come in, just not in the civil court, but I would still come to other courts, and I would see sheriff officers, greet them. They knew who I was, and nothing would happen. So what ended up happening was the matter that was on appeal that had jurisdiction. I did not get a notification by the court because so much was going on. So what ended up happening is the issue that was now on the appeal, it ended up getting dismissed. And as soon as it got dismissed, I noticed it, and I filed for reconsideration with the appellate court, the state appellate court. When I asked for reconsideration, I said, you guys have this trial court judge who's putting in orders related to an issue you guys have exclusive jurisdiction over. I said he's also coming to my business and also my house, and sending sheriff officers when he has no jurisdiction over the case. So they ended up denying my reconsideration, but I did not know at the time that this judge was actually writing letters to the state appellate court about me, which is unheard of. But we found that out later. Yes.
Hold on a second. So you telling me that, okay, so basically, correct me if I'm wrong, if you appeal the case,
yes,
it basically went around him to another division, correct? So at that point, he wouldn't have any jurisdiction as to what would go on.
Right. Yeah. It goes above him. So he's part of the lower trial court. And so when the appeal is filed, the issue that is appealed, it gets removed from the trial court and it goes up to the appellate court. So that's why I say that the lower court was divested of jurisdiction. At that point, he has no jurisdiction over that issue of the case.
Okay. So then he turns around and he's communicating with these other judges about you
at the higher level, right? That he has no jurisdiction
to your case. So they're initially just denying you being heard, because he's going around you, going to them, and basically like, you know what I mean, hey, he's this, that, and the third. Don't listen to him, blah, 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 blah. Throw that out. And they're obliging it.
I mean, I can't say whether they're obliged or not, but it does make me wonder that did they oblige it, because at that time he was writing to them. I think, I don't know, it may be coincidence, it may not be. But that's what we found out, is that he was writing to the court, and typically judges don't do that.
Right. Okay.
And then,
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So then after that, he backdates an order. When I say backdate, he writes an order, but he doesn't file it, because at this point it was June the 5th. The order is filed holding me in contempt of that 10-day order. So he writes, and in the order he says, I hereby hold Walter Bernard in contempt of court, and the sheriffs are to arrest him and hold him in jail. So he writes this order, but then he backdates it to May 16th, when it was still on appeal. So he's holding me in contempt for an order he had no jurisdiction for. And for those that don't know, when you get held in contempt, you have one, the law just came down, but you have a right to a jury trial if you want on a contempt order.
I did not know that.
This again, this is specific to Pennsylvania.
Sure.
So secondly, you have to have a hearing, because on the record it needs to show why you were held in contempt, because you have to satisfy the elements, like that a person had notice of the order, they refused to abide to it, and that it was basically they had ill intent as to why they didn't comply with the order. So even if I did have that hearing, I still think I had valid argument. But we didn't even have a hearing, and he just writes an order holding me in contempt. And then in the order, he said there is a warrant issued for Walter Bernard, basically holding him in contempt of court. The sheriff officers are directed to arrest him and hold him in jail. And so with that, even with the contempt order, typically there's two types of contempt. There's civil contempt and there's criminal contempt. With civil contempt, you have to put in a condition to allow the alleged contemptor to basically be relieved of the contempt. So typically there's a condition. For example, in this case, if it was civil contempt, it would have been, hey, turn over the documents. Once you turn it over, like you'll be released from jail. Criminal contempt is different, because when they write a criminal contempt order, it gives like a set number of days. Hereby holding you in contempt, you have to stay in jail for 30 days for violating, an order. And then if those contempt orders are appealed, then again, if they're appealed, then you typically don't have to serve jail. A decision would come down from the appellate court as to the issue of contempt. So in my order, he did not put a condition for me to get out, nor did he put for a set amount of days. So when I'm looking at this order, I'm saying this is like
check mark. It needs to be this for it to
be
right.
Even a valid contempt.
Right.
Yeah. So not only did I not have a hearing, but even the order of holding me in contempt was all types of faulty. So I appealed I appealed that order. So once I appealed that order, then he's divested of jurisdiction again. So it's before the appellate court. Now this time I found out that he's writing letters again, and he writes to the appellate court and he's saying that that I'm avoiding arrest and that there's a current warrant for my arrest, which there was never a warrant. But those were not true, and he's going behind my back again, and writing to the appellate court. And so, just to fast forward the story, months later, I'm in court on another hearing, and I'm thinking, okay, he has no jurisdiction. The issue of me being in contempt is before the state appellate court. Well, I then am in a hearing and I'm arrested on, I believe, August the 9th. And I'm at the courthouse and a sheriff officer comes up to me and he places my bags aside, asks me to, and then tells me to turn around. He arrests me at the courthouse. I asked him what it's for. He shows me this old order from June or May or June that's on appeal. He shows it to me and he says, well, I have this. Like, what is that? Well, I'm arresting you at the direction of the judge. So I'm in front of another judge.
Something that's an appeal right now.
So jurisdiction is lost. You can't act on it. But the sheriff is sitting there acting on it. And I tell him, I said, yeah, but that's on appeal. You don't have jurisdiction. And he was like, well, I'm just doing what I'm told.
I'm just doing what I'm told. Yeah.
Yeah. So he then contacts the judge, and because I requested to see the judge, because I was like, this is on appeal. So the judge essentially says, I don't want to see him. And so I, at that time, I ended up having, like, going back and being placed in the holding cell. I was sweating just thinking of what was going to happen to me, because again, I knew there wasn't really paperwork. There wasn't a warrant, and I have a panic attack. So I say, man, I need emergency assistance. So they get I'm transported to the hospital. And another sheriff officer has directed me. So I go to the hospital. They check in my vitals and they're like, yeah, looks like, you having a panic attack. So stayed in the hospital the afternoon until I was able to settle again. Yeah. And next thing I know, they say the paddy wagon to come transport me to the jail. So two more sheriff officers show up to the hospital where I'm at, and they asked the other sheriff. They said it's our protocol to like whenever we transport somebody, we need a copy of. Well, yeah. I'm back. I've been in cuffs the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time.
I was chained to a gurney. When I was in the hospital. In hospital, I was in handcuffs the whole time. So the two transporting officers tell me, they say, well, in order for us to transfer him, we need to have a copy of the warrant. Where's the warrant? He shows them the piece of paper that he showed me, or that the other officer showed me, and they look at it and they go, what? This isn't a warrant? Like, what is this? So they said, we'll take him now, but we'll take him now just to transport him. But they're like, none of this seems right. So they put me in the car anyway, transfer me to the jail. They call their supervisor, and while they're on the phone with their supervisor, they're trying to look me up in the system. I'm not in the system. So like we get out the car and they're like, why do we even have you? And they said themselves, this sounds like a civil rights lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go to their supervisor.
When they say
that.
They start saying that.
Right. Yeah. So they go to their supervisor and they say, something's not right. He looks at it and he agrees with them. So he said, let me make a phone call. So he makes a phone call. Whatever phone call he made, he said, yeah, we got to finish processing him. So I'm requesting the judge. Judge says he doesn't want to see me. Then I found out the judge essentially said, I'm going on vacation next week. And I'm not seeing him before that. So when I first was arrested, it was a Wednesday. By Friday, I'm still trying to see the judge, still trying to get out. Now, under the Constitution, technically, you can only be that's why they have the show the first 48. Unless you can bring formal charges against somebody, they can't be detained longer than 48 hours. Otherwise, they're required to be released. Well, even in the state of Pennsylvania, there's that 48-hour rule, but they also have a 72-hour rule. So if you're detained based on a quote unquote bench warrant, that means the judge from the bench issues a warrant, then you can only be detained 72 hours. If you haven't seen the judge within 7, they're required to release you. So it was Monday, the following week, I'm still in jail. And I'm wondering okay, am I ever going to get out? I know that the order is open-ended, so it doesn't have a release date. I don't. So yeah.
I just want to say one thing. Don't ever get arrested on a Friday, man, because it's business days with these guys. Okay, so the weekend never even counted. Friday was your booking day. Okay, boom, that's your first day. Now Monday is your second day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And so I was booked on a Wednesday, and so I think that. Yeah, so I think that was intentional too, so that it carried over. So I'd be in for a minimum of Monday. Yeah, the longest stretch. Yeah. So Wednesday the following week. So I've been in a week, and I know that I'm being detained illegally. So Wednesday the following week, we filed emergency. My legal team, we filed emergency petition saying that I've been now it's unconstitutional just because of my detainment was so long without seeing a judge. So a judge agrees to hear it on that Friday, and this is an Ignelzi. Ignelzi is on vacation, so a judge hears it on Friday, and my attorney at the time he's telling her that I've been detained over a week. And the law says that I need to either see the judge I need to see the judge who gave the order to arrest me, or two, I need to see the president judge. If none can, then I need to be released. So she says, we're going to take a 2-hour break and come back. She says she takes a 2-hour break, comes back, and when she comes back, she says, I was able to talk to Judge Ignelzi. And based on that conversation, there's a hearing scheduled for next Monday. So I'm denying the release, and we're leaving you in. So then the next Monday comes, and I'm brought again to the courthouse, still in shackles, still in custody, and I've been locked up this entire time. Now, when I brought before the court, the Judge Ignelzi, by now I filed the federal lawsuit while being in jail. So now it's starting to get traction in the media, and so the media is showing. Some of the media showed up, and so he calls this a contempt hearing, even though the contempt is on appeal. So he calls this a contempt hearing, and he starts to threaten me and saying that based on my answers today, he's like, I'm going to hold you in criminal contempt, and based on your answers, that's how long I'll determine criminal contempt. Because he said it's criminal contempt because he gave me an order. Remember when I was removed from my home? And he brought me, and he said, because you gave me your word, you were going to turn over the stuff. And that was it. So he says, based on your answers today, I'll determine how long I'm going to hold you in criminal contempt. And at that point, I was just like, there's no let up. I told my attorney, I was like, I have to settle the case and give them whatever they want, because
they're going to go all the way with this. Right.
Yeah. But it just wasn't stopped, because in my eyes, that he was not, none of this process, he was not following the law. The law is clear. And so when he told me that, I just said, whatever they want, like, I'll just have to settle, because I'm thinking that's the only way to gain my freedom at this point. So I said, yeah, I'm willing to settle the case. At that time, we asked the judge to recuse himself, since there was a pending federal lawsuit against him.
But he wasn't willing to do that, huh?
He denied it. He said no. Yeah. So at that point, because I wanted an independent judge to see it, but it would have been hard for them to see this, because remember, the contempt issue was on appeal, and now he decides, after the fact, to have this contempt hearing. So
messy.
At that point,
it sounds messy all the way around.
Yeah. So at that point, I ended up saying that I'd settle the case, wrote a check, a personal check. And I didn't, again, how do you get your checkbook, when I'm in handcuffs? When I was taken into sheriff custody, I had a satchel. It had my personal checkbook, had my laptop, had keys, cell phone, everything. So what happened was, they took my satchel, they went in my bag, removed my cell phone, keys, and wallet. They gave it to the jail, because you have inventory when you get inventory when you're in jail. They take all your items, and then you have to sign, like, yes, I had this amount, I have the. So somebody forged my name on the inventory list. So the jail had my cell phone, keys, wallet, but the sheriffs, for some reason, they kept my laptop, my personal checkbook. They kept that stuff in their office. So when I was in shackles, so when I was in shackles, they went and they retrieved my laptop, because when I was in jail, I was trying to get somebody to get my laptop so that they could get files, because I had files that for other clients on my case. But I think that was done intentionally, so I couldn't get my files from jail. So they were the whole time they were sitting in the sheriff office. Like, they didn't even put them in my regular inventory. They actually separated my items.
I wanted to say one thing on that, because you asked the original question, because I was going to initially answer, but then I bit my tongue. You're like, well, how does someone get their checkbook, blah, blah, blah. But I instantly answered to myself, baby moms. You know what I mean? Right. She bringing it over. She bringing me my checkbook if I need, But
right.
Yeah, you didn't go down that path. So that was great.
No. Yeah. No. What happened was, I couldn't get anybody to get it. So the sheriff radioed to a colleague. They brought my satchel, but they brought everything to the courthouse to me. So I was unhandcuffed only on my right, because I'm right-handed. They uncuffed me so that I could solely write a check. And then I thought it was over. The judge looked at the check. Is this some type of loan? Or I said, no, this is, the money's good. He said, well, based on, your word, he said, we need to call the bank, because I want to make sure that the funds are good. I said, well, I'm telling you right now, as an officer of the court, like, the funds are good. He said, based on your previous action, I'm not buying that. So he said,
He's playing that game now with you. Yeah.
So then he says, is there somebody at the bank that we can call to verify the funds? I said, I don't really know anybody at the bank. Yes. So he said, here's what we're going to do. He said, here's what we're going to do. Unless you can verify the funds right now, he said, if you can verify the funds and get someone on the bank, I'll let you out. But if not, you're going to sit in jail until that check clears. And so I said, I don't know anybody at the bank. I guess I have to go. I said, I guess I'm going to have to stay. I guess I'm going to have to wait till the check clears. I don't know anybody at the bank. So I'm transported back to the I'm transported back to the jail, and when I get back, I notice my phones are cut in the jail, which is technically a First Amendment violation. I can't call anybody. I get back, and make a long story short, the check clears on a Friday. Remember, my hearing's on a Monday, check clears on a Friday. So the judge is notified. Then he writes an order to say for the jail to release me because I've satisfied my condition. Remember, there weren't any conditions. So he writes an order saying Walter Barras satisfied his condition, release him immediately. And even at this time, I believe we were on lockdown. So I'm still stuck, but it wasn't until the following Monday that I was finally released. And so I when I got out, first thing I did was call the appellate state court, like, hey, what happened to my contempt order? They said, well, it's still pending, but we have been requesting the transcript, requesting the files for the judge to send over, and he hasn't sent it yet. Remember, he can't send transcripts that aren't there. So
and it's hard enough to get my doctor to send something to my pharmacy, let alone, that kind of level stuff. I mean, it's just crazy how, we've been waiting. We just been waiting, but everyone's always waiting in these situations.
Yeah.
But the people that get hemmed up is us, the people, and it's just unfortunate.
You know what?
Yeah. So go ahead.
Question real quick. So he wants you to write this check, right?
Right.
Now, previously, if I recall correctly, you said that when y'all had this hearing, being the fact that building was leased out to someone else who was paying more, they had to go through and figure out how much was actually owed because, with these people,
we're entitled to offset.
More, right.
Yeah.
So you had to figure out what that offset was. Did they ever tell you what that offset payment was?
Probably never.
No.
Yeah,
no.
That's right.
So when you went to do this check, he just gave you a number.
Yes. The opposing counsel. So at that point, I was the mercy of them. Like, how much do y'all want? And that's what they said.
Okay. Can you say how much you had to give them?
Yeah, 80,000.
Damn it, man.
And they never showed you any paperwork prior to that showing like, okay, this is what you paid. This is what this person paid. Here's the offset to that. This is what you owe. They never showed you that.
Walter
so there's
denied.
Yeah. So they finally started turning over some of the information, but there was a disagreement as to what those amounts were. And that's why we actually petitioned to the court to have these hearings. And the basis to petition was that we said we wanted to pay, if at all, but we had some objections to how much they're saying that is out there. And so we were trying to get this information so that could be clarified. And a lot of it wasn't clarified. We never had a hearing over it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they so later on, we're gonna speed this up a little bit. So later on, the federal courts ruled that this judge was protected by judicial immunity.
Yes.
So could you kind of explain exactly what that is and why you believe um, that should not protect him dealing with this case?
Yes. So judges have there's different types of immunity. One is considered qualified immunity. The other is what judges and prosecutors have. It's called absolute immunity. How absolute immunity works is as long as is essentially they're in the crux of their position or their job, then they can't be sued, and if they're immune from civil lawsuit. And so qualified immunity is a little like it, but qualified immunity is more it's more relaxed. So that's why you see a lot of officers get personally sued because they're saying that their actions are outside of the normal course of business, so they don't have immunity.
Like
So
their civil rights have been
violated. Yeah.
violated, and then they can go after them. But why is it judges in particular? In this case, that has got full immunity for some reason. I think that no one should be above the law, right?
Right. Yeah. So the theory on absolute immunity is that a judge, when he's making a decision, even if he's in error, he should not have to be looking over his shoulder he shouldn't have to look over his shoulder to be sued because they figure that there would be an influx of people if the judge gets a law, if he does a decision or does something that they don't like, then
isn't that accountability? Accountability for your judgments, your rulings. I mean, you're taking away and giving away freedom, right, to people. I think that you should be able to be held accountable for your decisions. I don't think that you should be immune to. I mean, if you give someone that's a full-on rapist or a pedophile or whatever immunity, and then they go and do these acts again, I think that judge should be held accountable for that decision.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think a lot. I think that's what the argument is. And then the other argument that a lot of judges make is like, just because it prevents people from filing frivolous lawsuits because the judge should be focused in on weighing in on the law and court rather than defending himself in the courthouse just because someone is upset with the ruling, because otherwise a lot of the court systems right now are clogged up, and so it would just create a separate backload that they don't want judges, and same with prosecutors. Prosecutors have absolute immunity.
This goes for everybody, though. This goes for everybody, whether it be your representatives, I mean, whether it be state level or congressional level, we're going federal, whatever. I think that, yes, there's going to be frivolous lawsuits that can come at anybody that has any type of limelight, that has any type of light upon them. There's going to be frivolous lawsuits. And I think that everyone should be able to take that into account and be able to judge that off of that. But unfortunately, they're catering specifically to judges on that when there can be frivolous lawsuits, which we see every day, all day with our representatives, for instance. So, I mean, where do we draw a line?
Yeah, and I think that's the question. I think that's the question that we're trying to pursue is if this judge is immune from the actions he did to me, then where does it stop? Because what was done to me was criminal. And so if that's the case, who's to stop a judge from, if a particular judge had an ex-wife he didn't like and he came to the courthouse, or he got the sheriffs to bring her to the courthouse and commit a crime against her at the courthouse, he has immunity. So when does absolute immunity when does it end? It doesn't mean no immunity, and no one's above the law. So,
well, it's a slippery slope fallacy, and that's really what it is. Is it's a slippery slope that can be taken advantage of, and that's ultimately where we see corruption and all of these things. I mean, we're not just talking about. I mean, there's corruption everywhere, but this is just one very small, minuscule aspect of it, and it's very true. And unfortunately, good people like yourself get crossed up in these possum traps that they make, that it is impossible for we the people to actually defend. And you're an attorney yourself. So, I mean, now you're at the Supreme Court level, you know, where you're presenting it to the Supreme Court. That's a humongous deal. Now, I don't know if the average citizen would even be able to get to that level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm is getting at is you're specialized in law already. And if it's already hard for you as somebody that's specialized in law, studied law, done this, passed the bar, all this stuff, and you're an active lawyer, I mean, can you imagine for like a retard like me? You know what I mean? Like that's the problem that we find ourselves in with this system, I think.
Yeah, and that's what has been my motivation to challenge what was done to me, because I know that it can happen to anybody. Like if this has happened to me and I understand, I know I study the law, then who's to say it wouldn't happen to the average citizen who doesn't have the resources that I've been blessed with.
Right.
Yeah.
Money, network, connections. I mean, as a lawyer, of course, you're gonna have probably a bigger network than the average person. Just saying, you know, and you probably have a little bit more resources to deal with that. Now, I mean, that's just me blanket statement on that. But unfortunately, the average person will not know how to navigate these situations. And when they get shut down in the original judgment, to go through appeals even, and to do all these different things that you know to do. But unfortunately, the average person doesn't necessarily know the length that you need to fight this. Even once they tell you no to your face, you have to go further and further and further until you actually prove them wrong. It's kind of like when you talk to AI. Like it'll be like, no, this is what it is. And you're like, no, I know for a fact it's this. And then finally it says, oh, you were right to call that out. Actually, thank you for letting me know. We just had a learning moment. Yeah, that's what, unfortunately, we don't have any concessions from the government and or our system and the aspect of law. So that's the hard part, is these people don't know how to concede on any front when they're actually wrong. They'll go all the way with it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's the tough thing also about absolute immunity is that, so they say the law as it stands now is if a judge exceeds his jurisdiction, meaning that he's not the original judge, but he's ruling, he may have, put somebody in handcuffs at the courthouse, but if he has jurisdiction over that case, if he has some influence in the courthouse, but it's something that he normally does, then they're saying that he exceeds his jurisdiction. If he exceeds his jurisdiction, he still has immunity. But but in order to remove immunity, a judge has to do what we call act in clear absence of immunity. And what that means is if there is a statute that divest the judge of immunity, like such as my case, where he knows he doesn't have jurisdiction because the statute says that once you file the notice of appeal, the trial court loses all immunity. That's undebatable.
That's the way it should be. Right.
So if a judge violates someone's rights under that, that's acting in clear absence. That's the narrow circumstance of when a judge would not have immunity, or some of the other things if he's doing what we call a non-judicial act, like there's been judges held responsible for sexual harassment of someone of their staff, and so those are other ways if he's doing something the judge doesn't normally do. Those are ways to get around immunity. So in my case,
okay, well, that's actually a very special distinction you just made, because they're not full immunity is in the regards to the job job description, not necessarily what you do outside of that job description, right? So if there is some SA allegations or whatever, that's now outside the normal scope of the job description, right? So
right.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah. So there have been judges that have been responsible or have not had immunity in that situation. But with me, what we're saying that the judge did was that he was acting as a supervisor of the sheriff's department, under that first arrest, because there was no warrant. That's not an act a judge typically does. Is cause a person to be arrested without any type of warrant or any order.
Yeah, if there's no warrant, no order
at that point, right? Because he was on the phone directing.
Yes,
what's going on,
and
right?
yes, and there's a case actually out in West Virginia that addressed this, and essentially that case, there was a judge that actually went to a person's home. It was a custody battle, and the judge went to that individual's house and said that that if you don't comply, if you don't turn over, we can't come and inventory your property. We're going to have this hearing right now. The guy sued the judge, but the lower federal court in West Virginia ruled for the judge, said he had immunity, but then it went to the Fourth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals said the judge does not have immunity because in that circumstance, he's acting like a supervisor of the sheriff's department. And so we're basically taking those facts to say, how is this judge in my case different? Because it's almost the same thing as the West Virginia case, because he was actively on the phone with the sheriff officers trying to get them to break into my house.
Right.
Yeah, without any warrant.
Right.
That's crazy.
The same thing.
Yeah.
So here's my question. So you have recently filed a petition to the Supreme Court.
Yes.
So my question is, what exactly are you asking the Supreme Court case? What is it that you want out of this? Or that you looking for out of this? Sorry.
What I'm looking for out of this is what I'm asking the Supreme Court to do is to take a look at judicial immunity and to show that this is a very narrow circumstance, but we as the people, how else are we supposed to prevent actions like this if the state law is clear, the federal law is clear, and even case law is clear? How do you have a judge acting in this manner that a judge should be held accountable for his actions? Because if he could do this to me, he can do it to anybody and get away with it. So asking the Supreme Court to draw the line on absolute immunity.
Mm-hmm. Where does that line start and end? Right?
Yes.
Like that's basically what you're asking the Supreme Court to do, is weigh where that line is.
Exactly. Because right now he hasn't technically been held responsible for all the actions that he's done.
So yeah, that's where.
And God bless you and your journey on that, for real.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Say evidence matters. That's exactly why we say that's why evidence matters.
Facts.
Yes. And the fortunate thing about my case is a lot of what I'm saying is all in the transcripts, it's all on record. And so as an attorney, I try to lead with the evidence and stay away from my personal opinions, but let the evidence lead the way.
Well, you're not only defending yourself, but you're defending the average American as well. In all of these situations, I think that we need lines that are clear in the law. Like, if this is what it is, this is what it is. But you have to state that and announce that, and that's what it is. Unfortunately, it's so black or I would say very gray in the aspect that you don't really get a clear-cut answer. It's kind of different depending on who you are, your network, maybe your net worth, or all of it, all of the above. It's unfortunate that the system works this way.
Yes.
It was designed this way, though, from conception, unfortunately.
Right, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, you know what? This has been a very enlightening show. We had 134.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah, there was a lot to this. And Walter, thank you once again for joining us and explaining your side of this case. And I hope that the Supreme Court accepts the petition and you're able to go before the Supreme Court and it goes into your favor. And to everyone watching, go back, as he was saying, read the discussions, examine the petition. And I hope you listen carefully to the answers and the way that he was explaining everything. Because there was so much there. You know what I mean? Like we kept bringing up all this other stuff, but it was from day one all the way. It's so much stuff that's going on there that you can basically pick this apart. And I mean, yeah, I do understand they're using this immunity to basically cover up everything that's going on. You know what I mean? But there has to be that line that has to be drawn as, okay, this is what you did over here. This is what you shouldn't have did over here. And by you doing this, then you affected this man's civil rights. You know what I mean? You literally had him locked up in jail with no charges, and you using a trumped up charge that you backdated
And no warrant. I mean,
to make
like,
it right to even try to get that. Plus, you done extorted me and made me write a check when you didn't even show me the paperwork as to how much money that was actually owed from the beginning. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of stuff that's going on with this case, and I hope that you people that's watching kind of follow up on this. It's already been on several other shows. It's been on Roland Martin and several other shows. Also seen where Benjamin Crump did an article about it as well. So it's out and about, and it's everywhere. And so I hope you really like check in on this. And like I said, Walter, I really appreciate you being on here as well. Now, if this conversation that we had tonight gave you any information that you didn't hear anywhere else, subscribe to the Domino Effect Podcast. Share this episode. Leave your comments, leave your answers, leave a question, and we'll get back to you. And like we always say, don't just follow the headlines, follow the evidence. Thank you. I'll see you all in 7 days. Go ahead, Mike.
well, listen, I can't thank each and every single one of you guys enough for obviously being a part of this, hitting that like button, subscribing a part of both of our channels. We very much appreciate it. Walter, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on to the platform and having a good time with us and also explaining your position. I know this is not a very simple case that you're dealing with. Unfortunately, I'm also involved in a disability case that's extremely complex. I am a full-blown amputee, just for just to let everybody know. But unfortunately, I'm also going through something that is very onion layered, where there's many layers to the whole situation, and every bit of it, all the context matters. And I appreciate you coming up here and being able to explain you and your position, because I know ultimately it actually sucks and having to like advocate for yourself, what that ultimately advocates for the rest of humanity. So I look at that and I appreciate it. So much love and respect to everyone that's watching and everyone on the panel. And Aaron, I'll let you go with it.
Okay, I go by the rule that 20% in any profession, 20% of the people that work in that profession aren't worth a damn. I don't care. 20% of police aren't worth a damn. 20% of the doctors aren't worth a damn. I don't care what department you work in. If you admit the truth, 20% of the workers you work with aren't worth anything. This judge, to me, has showed a clear case of abuse of power. He knows all the tricks to the game, and he's pulled them. And I hope anyone watching the show watches the show in the terms of a learning experience, so that if anything ever happens to you, that you've learned from this and might be able to mount some sort of defense, or at least know the pathways you need to go in. And I'll stop there.
Walter,
Do you have a closing that you want to say, Walter, before we get off?
No, I just first and foremost, I just want to thank you guys for having me on and allow me to tell my story. As you said, it's a complex story, but I think it's a story that needs to be told. And the more people that can understand the ins and outs of judicial immunity and fighting for what's right, fighting for the rights. That's kind of what I do it for, and we'll continue to fight. That's why I essentially became an attorney. I wanted to affect change, and so I hope everybody that's watching, even if your change is small, if you feel like your change is insignificant or is big, that it does have an impact of those around you. And just to hear you guys, knowing that I have your support, it means a lot. And going through this isn't easy, but I just appreciate the encouragement and that you see me and what I'm fighting for. And so I humbly say thank you. Appreciate it.
We're definitely going to keep up with it. And
yes,
I'll be in communication with you, and we will give everybody updates as it goes on. And if, like I said, if it does get accepted, then we'll probably have you on here again telling us what happened.
Absolutely.
So,
yep, coming right back on the show. Yep.
That's right. Anytime.
That's right.
All right. So everybody, thank you all for coming. Much love and respect to everyone, and I'll see you guys in 7 days.
All right. Much love to everybody. We'll see you guys very soon.